Alrighty, so welcome. The Net Kids Film Club is doing a series this month, and this is the last one. First one on IG Live, which is really freaking cool. We've been doing them on Zoom lately, so if you've missed them, we'll post them later down the road on a website we'll have up here soon. But just to kind of give everybody a little bit of context, the Net Kids Film Club is an Indigenous-centered film community dedicated to promoting filmmaking and exposing film scholarship as career trajectories for young Indigenous adults. And Net Kids is currently highlighting the horror genre as a vessel for creativity, accessing Indigenous language and cultural expression, all while deconstructing colonial storytelling. And right now, our Language of Horror series is a weekly informal meeting with artists and creatives throughout the month of October whose works are in conversations with the horror genre. And today we are discussing with the last of our bunch for the month on their artistic career and what that looked like, what inspired that journey. But before we move into that, Net Kids also wants to acknowledge the 23 Native nations that inhabited this land in Arizona. We're currently located on the ancestral territories of Indigenous peoples, including Akamela Odom and Peeposh Indian communities. And I want to thank everyone for being here with us this evening. We encourage you to use the chat at the bottom as space to celebrate and share any thoughts as we move through the next hour. People will be kind of shuffling in here as this will be the first live that they're seeing popping up. But first, we'll have our guests read a sample of their work for about 10 minutes. Then we'll follow up with a conversation about their career as a writer, as a poet specifically, and how the language of horror inspired their work. And in the last 15 minutes, we'll take questions using, if there is a Q&A section, I believe there is. At the bottom, there's a little question mark bubble. Use that for any questions that you have. But tonight, the last night of horror, Language of Horror, we have Mateo Perez Lara, who is a queer, non-binary Latinx poet from California. So happy to have him here. They have a pamphlet of poems, Glitter Gods, showcased with 30 West Publishing House. They have an MFA in poetry from Randolph College. Their work has been published in EOAGH. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Maine River, the Acentos River, I'm sorry, the Maine Review, the Acentos Review, and elsewhere. Awesome. Take it away.
Thank you so much. My pronouns are they, them. I'm very appreciative of this kind of time, and I really love horror. So when I was asked to do this by Chris, I was very excited, and I'm gonna read a few pieces for you, and I hope you enjoy them. The first one is called Aftermath. And when you harm another, you devolve, you gain momentum, you become, you salt a circle around the wound, you salt a circle around the wound, you salt a circle around the wound, you circle, salt, become the wound, you wound the circle, become the salt, you are the salt in the wound, you are the wound and the salt in the circle, you are the salt, you are the wound, you are the circling. Thank you. Um, I work a lot with horror elements, and I do talk a lot about time and cycles and the breaking of cycles. Um, I have a lot of dreams. I watch a lot of scary movies, especially before bed. So this poem is about kind of a dream that I had, and kind of just how when I woke up, I kind of how dreams sometimes manifest real things in your life too. Like obviously some of the stuff in your dreams is fantastical, but a lot of it is, has a lot of reality to it. Also, this is also there's some lines in here from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. Dream, opening death scene. Flash, witness this blood-curdling scream pushing us into the final act. Flash, witness skulls without teeth. Flash, witness fingers on rotted tables. Flash, witness a massacre, a rebellious queer youth. The story in which you are about to hear is an account of a tragedy which befell some of the most bizarre and macabre minds in the annals of American history. Welcome to prime time, bitch. Slow fade into discovery of popcorn in the cupboard, then a call, then over the phone. Ghostface asks you, "What's your favorite scary movie?" You tell him. He then asks you a simple question. You get it wrong. How could one get it wrong? You've seen the movie 20 goddamn times. Flash, the killer chases you outside, wants to hang you up in the tree. Flash, the knife sheens in the moonlight. But what if you don't stop running? You don't look back. What if you follow the rules? You keep going, keep shouting. You can make it just as you are right now at the beginning. You could, as a knife rises up above your head, plunges down straight to your heart. You could, before it reaches you as the credits roll. You could make it to the end. Thank you. Um, so I've been working on a full length poetry manuscript, and it does a lot with horror tropes and kind of just also learning how to deal with like family horror, family violence, and reconciling that and healing from that, and also to kind of like in order to be your better self now, how you have to kill the past selves or like essentially, let go of the past selves in order to be who you are right now, and be a better version of you. So this poem is kind of about that. It's called And Then None. I have learned to breathe properly when I am anxious, but I swear the creatures still stalk me. Once I saw a shadow in my grandparents' room and kicked it until it vanished. Doubt has grown a devil in my heart. I made a dress of it, ran around the backyard pretending a killer was chasing me. There were fantasies that embedded themselves within my hiving hands, little pustulates collecting under my palm. My conviction to my body became reality. They blotted these pustulates all over me. Their presence haunted my anatomy for years. I knew the outcomes of my life before they happened. I slept until I couldn't recognize danger. Now I wake every night to the terror shards. I scream myself awake, remembering the tiniest of cruelties, first my own, then every endless other. I have been brought to this portal, asked to enter. I do not know what lies on the other side, but with this, I let go of my former selves, my family memories clinging. We're all going to die tonight. I have one more. Um, I wasn't gonna read this one because I was like, it's too sexual. But you know what? When in Rome, and it's a spooky poem, um, and it's a sexual poem. It's like Hansel and Gretel, but for gays. So this is called "The Portal," in which I am the Last Supper for him. I want to thank Chris again and Danae Kids Film Club for allowing me to read. This is called, again, The Portal in which I am the Last Supper for him. Semen on my hand, infinite reminder of his hush voice, his scent, a trail having led into his neon bright candy forest. I'm young, naive, needing. I associate attention with affection. I've been unable these days for separation of platonic from intimate. I stain his pillows with my too much want. There is his finger in my mouth. There is his tongue familiarizing itself across my genderless stretch marks. I'm in his decadent house. I'm sitting at his table where he treats me with dessert and dessert. I grow satiated, yet he expects me in constant indulgence. This is where he tricks me. He calls me love. He puts me in the oven. He stuffs me with sage, rosemary, lemon, garlic. His lips are smacking, dripping on his sharp teeth, revealing truths I long neglected because I focused on listening. He says where, how, what I could suck, lick, swallow. Now, here in this heat, in this inferno, I've been told this is our final course. Then he slides his fingers in, slippery, boiling, crackling. I open, 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 I open. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. This is Mateo here. I appreciate that. Love the poetry. I came across your writing a while ago, and I thought it was super fascinating that you do this unique thing of always incorporating the profane in that way. So I definitely want to thank you for that. And then also being here tonight. So yeah. Alrighty, let's get it going. I always ask everybody this first question, the first go around at the general questions all around but there are a couple that I'll have just specifically for you as we move through the rest of this conversation. And again, last 15 minutes of tonight, closer to 7:45. Yeah, I believe. No, 7:20 to 15. Sorry, 7:15. I have a thing with time. Closer to 7:15, we'll have kind of an open conversation with everybody. They can kind of drop their questions in that little bubble on the bottom with a question mark as we're going for the night, and then we'll answer those. But for you, I wanted to start with the first question, which is the whole purpose of this whole thing with language of horror. How has the language of horror influenced you and your career?
I think it has led me lovingly into kind of what I like to see in poetry, but also like what I like to see in writing in general. Like, you know, I've been a horror fan for a really long time. I remember I watched Scream 1996 when I was in kindergarten, and the next day at school, it was tag, but I made a game called Killer in which someone's the killer, but they tag somebody and they stab them, and then they become the killer, and basically you keep going into whoever the last one is that gets tagged. I got in so much trouble at school. I remember I had to talk to like the parent and my teacher, like, why did you make up this game? And I was like, oh, I watched this movie, you know. And anyway, so like horror has definitely like led me through a lot of things, and I feel like it's very cathartic in the sense of like, you know, a lot of scary movies, they some of them, you know, end, you know, badly, or they have like a what the fuck ending, or you know, they have a sad ending. But most horror movies, I like to think when I watch them, they do have happy endings in the sense that whoever's being victimized, whoever's being, you know, burdened, they unburden themselves. You know, they end up saving themselves. So I always take that little trope and like apply it to my life, you know, like no matter what tries to victimize me or what tries to create harm in my life, you know, whether I'm the perpetrator of my own harm or somebody else is the perpetrator of my harm, I can get through it, you know, if I push through. So yeah, I've especially now, you know, more so in my life than before, I write a lot about horror and kind of my, you know, how sometimes our lives are like horror movies in the sense like there's so much dread and like anxiousness and worry and horror around us, you know, even, you know, with the genocide going on, you know, even in the, you know, even in the United States, you know, just being queer, just being a person of color, like there's still a lot of horror around us and people neglect to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So how we can move through horror and embrace it and also fight against it, you know. So I definitely move through horror in a way that it helps me and analyze my writing, analyze my perspective of life, and yeah, just yeah, I move through it. It's like my thing now in the sense of like I was always pushing against myself about what I wanted to write, what kind of writer I wanted to be, what kind of stories that I want to tell. And it felt best when, like, okay, I have these very vivid dreams. I love horror movies, and my life is kind of a little bit fucking crazy. People don't really know a lot about my life unless I give it to them. So they just think like, oh, Mateo's just crazy and this stuff. But I've worked a lot. I've become a better version of myself, and through that better version of myself, I've taken all these things with me, and horror has been one of those things because I often see myself, and I think a lot of queer people do see themselves in horror, like, the outcast or the one who's like weird and crazy and this, that, and the other, all these like harmful like stereotypes and characteristics and identities. But it's like they end up being the ones that save other people. They end up also saving themselves too in the process of whatever's going on. So I always like hold on to that. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
hope
that's
that's, yeah, I was long winded, but yeah.
I like that. No, it makes complete sense because you're coming at it not from an angle of what horror as a language is, but what is it doing in relation to what is the role of pain and trauma doing within the genre, and what is identity, and especially the embodiment of writing, right? And how that's kind of playing into all of that. Um, I think addressing and suggesting and engaging with painful experiences, it's horror is really the only vessel to do that, right? And so that's how we kind of do it. And I love that that's how you kind of approach it because a lot of people kind of see horror as this thing is like they're only looking at the surface level of it. What is it doing on a surface level? There's blood, there's gore, there's body horror, and that's the extent of it.
There's
But
possession, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, but it's so much deeper than that. And when you did your reading and you mentioned that you referenced Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that really is about the societal tension between upper class, middle class, and lower class. And so, and you were addressing it from a new perspective of what is it doing to our bodies, right? And so I think that's really interesting that you say that. It's a play on the body and what is the body doing. It really reminds me of, I don't know if you've read it, but, Melissa Favors's book, Body Works.
No,
Um,
but I'm gonna write that name down.
but it's definitely in conversation with what you're saying, but she doesn't necessarily write, in the horror genre. The book it really encompasses a lot about writing, what vulnerability looks like, what does intersectionality look like, again, what is the role of pain and trauma when we are writing towards it, from it, and away from it.
She
Um,
wrote Girlhood too, right?
I believe so, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I've read that one, yeah, for a book club, but I haven't read Body Works, so I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's a little I found it just a little dense in the first read. I kind of was like, "Wait, what? I'm not retaining anything." But it's really good. I think it does deserve multiple readings to really understand, like, okay, I see where you're coming from with all of this. But I like that. I think it's again, it's in relation to our bodies, especially when it comes to BIPOC people. Our writing really comes from a place of what our bodies are doing, right?
Yes. I
Um,
think, and especially because, like, the language of the body, like, also, like, what it's feeling, why is it feeling that way? Can we pinpoint the emotion? Do we have a word for it? Or if there are any words, how do we express it? For a long time, I was, you know, going through life without, words for the ways I was feeling, and also, you know, being harmed and causing harm, but not like knowing why, just doing it. And then so really having to research for myself, but then seeking therapy and finding some sort of language for what was going on inside me. So like, and then being able to extract that body language and then put it kind of into words, in the best way I knew how. So
mhm. Yeah, definitely. I love it. And so I guess that kind of leads me into my next question of what is your relationship to horror now?
I think I have a pretty loving relationship with horror. I definitely have a ritual of watching a horror movie every night before bed, even if it is a movie I've seen before. I do that. I've been doing that for a while now, for almost a year now.
Mhm.
Um, I I think, like I was mentioning earlier, horror really, for me, is more about like a release. Like I love feeling like the tension and the things that the characters are experiencing. To like it's like a release for me, in the sense of like, because we've all been there in some way, like in like this space of dread or fear, anxiety or worry, but then you're watching a movie and then the movie ends and it's gone, so it's kind of like a conduit in which you feel this thing and then it goes away, and it's not carried inside of you permanently, so I love horror. I recently, like we were talking earlier before we went live, Cadu Lake. I just watched that, but it's more like thriller, But I still liked it. I've recently watched Your Monster with Melissa Barrera.
Mhm.
She's so funny, but it's creepy. It's like a horror comedy, like Repo or Sweeney Todd, but it's really good. I recently watched Terrifier 3. That was wild, but I love it. I love gore. I think because I was introduced to gore at such a young age, like when I was like 2 or 3, I got my eye bitten by a dog, and I don't remember the pain, but I just remember like my face being covered in blood and like seeing red like over my face, and like I have a scar like under my eye, but like just like being introduced to like bloody things. I know it sounds so macabre, but like being introduced to gore at a young age made me not be so squeamish about it. I think vomit makes me more grossed out and like sick than anything else, like I hate the sound of like vomit or like someone getting ready to throw up. Like I just hate that. Like no. But like anything else is fine. So yeah, I love horror. It's definitely something that I'm in tune with. I love monsters. I love a really good creature feature. I'm so into possession movies. Like I loved Immaculate. I loved The First Omen. I really loved The Exorcist. Obviously, The Last Exorcist. Like even the dumb ones. Like I've always found comfort in like the way in which something takes over your body and like you expel it from you. Because I always think of it like the like the people I have seen in my life be a certain way and then, change or pass away, or the way I used to be when I was younger, me before sobriety, me after sobriety, kind of like these these incarnate things inside of you that you're kind of releasing, and I just think it's cool. And I not cool. Well, yeah, cool. I think possession movies are cool, just the way the body functions. Like Evil Dead Rise, love that movie.
Yeah, I love possession movies too. I think, what did I just watch a couple nights ago? I don't even remember what the last possession movie I watched. I know I put just like you, I put a horror movie on as like comfort to go to sleep to.
Oh, me too, yeah.
I was talking to my sister and I was like, "Yeah, I put on The Conjuring on for, to relax." And she's like, "I see that, but the thing with that movie is that the sound is like too loud." And I was like, "It really is. It really is kind of one of those films where it's like you can put it on and it's quiet for a while, but it gets pretty loud really quickly." And
Now I'm
that's
just falling asleep to Texas
yeah.
Chainsaw Massacre 2003, like a couple of days ago, just like literally falling asleep as like Jessica Biel's running through the forest, like wet t-shirt, like to a meat factory. I'm just like, I'm about to pass out, but like somebody else would be like freaked out. Like, but I'm like, the rev of an engine, of a chainsaw.
You're like, if it's not a body, then I'm fine with it, like, making the noise. I'm totally fine with it. Yeah, that's I think it's funny because it's, I love the idea of having, finding comfort in a horror movie because I think it's the same as, like, a rom-com, you know what's gonna happen. I mean, it's a pretty standard structure in a lot of possession movies, what they are, First Omen, and I think you said Immaculate, both actually share kind of that, like relationship of um, female autonomy, really, at its
Mhm.
core. And what is that saying about women, and especially now with election season coming up, or it is election season.
Yeah.
Um, it is
My
really,
email tells me,
yeah. My
and
phone
my
tells,
phone. Yeah.
yeah, like phone calls every
Like, oh,
5 minutes.
somebody cares about me and they're texting me. Oh, yes, you want a donation. Okay.
And you
You
just
got
text
it, girl. You got it. Like,
text them right back, like, you need to donate to me.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's
donate to my queer
I love it. It's so with where do you kind of see horror kind of moving towards from here in terms of conversation?
You know what's so funny is like you mentioned earlier, like we kind of know the formulas of like a lot of horror movies. Like there's generally like nothing that really surprises me. You know, the last movie that like the last scary movie that really surprised me was Smile 2. And I
Oh,
never get surprised by any horror movies. The last horror movie I got surprised by was Hereditary when I watched it in theaters. That was like the last horror movie I was like surprised by. Because Midsummer, I kind of knew what was going on. Like she was gonna stay in the cold. They were gonna brainwash her because she was so in grief, and I didn't know what was gonna happen, but like she's gonna stay. Like
yeah.
you can see the pieces. Hereditary, I didn't know what the fuck was going on, and like I was like, what the? Like, I thought obviously the main character was a little girl. Sorry, I'm spoiling it if you haven't seen it, whoever's in here. But like, and then she gets her fucking, head taken off. And I'm just like, I look at my friend, I'm like, oh, fuck is this movie? So like, that was the last scary, like, surprise movie until Smile 2 recently. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't want to spoil it, but like, the last 10 minutes, I was like I sat in my car for like 5 minutes after. I was like, I'm like so confused and awestruck and it's bizarre. And
Mhm.
so like I guess with that being said is like I don't know, I kind of want to see low key me and my friend that I'm staying at the Airbnb with, like we were talking about like seeing more cannibal movies, like queer empowerment movies, maybe they eat other people, or maybe um what about people who want to get possessed, like like what if there's more agency to it, in which horror, like victims in horror actually become not the victim. Like what if they're like, no, I want this to happen, like, or and I want to see more cannibal movies. Like we got the Green Inferno by Dum Dum, but like I just want to see like more queer stuff, like Raw. Have you seen that movie
Yeah.
Raw? More like queer cannibalism. Like I don't know, not that I like want to eat people or anything. I'm not Army Hammer, but like I just want to see more like body horror, but in the sense of like kind of like Bones and All. Do you remember Bones and
Yeah.
All? Yeah, like that type of like cannibalism, kind of like
To embrace it, right?
but less romantic, just kind of like, hey, like we're doing this thing, kind of like queer cannibalism, but like Devil's Rejects, like where they like what they're doing, I kind of just want to see more empowerment in horror movies in that sense,
Hmm.
kind of like the main girl in Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3. But in Terrifier 3, have you seen it yet?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so they make her more of a victim in Terrifier 3, like
Yeah.
there's less like I was kind of like, why are they doing this to this like girl? Like
They
she
give
was
her
like,
that Laurie Strode, like Sydney Prescott treatment.
yeah, where they just like made her so powerless until the very last second. I'm just like, I just watched her like do nothing for a while, and then you want her to like magically do everything in like 5 seconds. Like it was
Mhm.
just not. It didn't get me there, but
Mhm.
like. So I just wanted to like have me there the whole time. And that's another thing too. Stop doing reboots. Like I want new Final Girls because I don't want this shit where like Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are like our new leads, and then they have actually they stand for something, Free Palestine, and then they get fired, and then we have these old white bitches. Sorry to whoever's watching, but like come back. I'm like, you had your season, and they kind of ruined the Scream legacy, because like they're doing it just for money and not for like the integrity of Scream franchise of the franchise. So like I'm not gonna watch Scream 7, so I'm
So
very upset.
upset,
But
but
I
I
stick to
stick
my
to my
guns,
guns,
so
So
like I'm
I'm
happy with
happy
the
with the
first
first
six.
six.
Like, I'll be
I'll be
happy with the first six. I watched Scream 6 like 5 times in theaters. So it's like I
like,
really liked it. It had and we didn't need Sydney in it. I really loved it with just Gail and Hayden Panettiere's character. I forgot Kirby. So
Yeah,
like, and I just liked that story. So, anyways, yeah. A long story short, I want less reboots. I want new final girls, and I want queer cannibalism.
yeah,
And people
exactly.
who and people who want to get possessed because they find it sexually gratifying.
Exactly.
Essentially, they're like, yes, possess me. This is hot. Like
Exactly, the embracement of horror through the body is kind of what I think we need. I think Jennifer's Body was doing it way before its time. Ginger
yes.
Snaps was doing it way, way before its time. And then there's other films that kind of are kind of doing it, but not really. Or I think First Omen kind of does it, but then kind of like, okay, we're kind of doing
They
something
shy
else.
away, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, what makes me the one thing that I've kind of have that shocked me particularly, and it's funny that you're an Airbnb is Barbarian.
Oh
Um,
my God, yes. That didn't
that
shock me though. Like I knew there was some weird shit just because like as soon as the night happened, I was like, there's some shit going on in that house. Like there's another house down there. Like anyway, but it almost got me, like for real. Like I didn't expect the creepy lady. I was like, oh shit, I thought it was gonna be like zombies or something. But
Mhm.
no, but yes, something like that. Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah, and
Shout out
it's
to Barbarian.
yeah, and it really kind of takes again to what we're doing with the idea of place and land and sovereignty. And from a colonial lens, we've left this place that was once a suburb. You see it in the movie, right? Where
Yeah.
this killer lived in the
It
suburb. It
was
was a
beautiful.
suburb.
Yeah, and
And
then it just deteriorates over time. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you can kind of see it almost seems like if you want to really get metaphorical with it, he was planting seeds within underneath the ground, his own quote unquote seeds, right? And if nobody hasn't seen it yet, doing incest, performing incest over years and years and years, and then resulting in what the film calls the mother.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of interesting. And our protagonist is a person of color, and we don't really. She actually has made some pretty smart decisions in the film.
Oh yeah,
And
she's fucking great.
yeah, and the first like 15, 20 minutes I think are brilliant. It kind of shows
It does throw you for a loop.
it does. It's like, oh, Bill Skarsgård, what are you doing? Like, just because he's been in other horror films where he's played the villain, and now he's like actually the good guy.
Not the villain.
And but I thought it was really interesting that it kind of was resembling and kind of sharing the same tropes as Fresh. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes, I love that movie. Also, what is it with hot white people, hot white men, and being crazy? I mean, I guess they are all psycho, respectfully.
It's like doing the deed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess I'll cap my but then you're gonna eat me.
I love it. And
I
I
just wanted to be gay, but yeah.
more queer horror films is all we need. Exactly. Um I think when we talk about there's not a lot of queer centered horror. We've always had horror talking about queer within its context, within its genre, but we never address it directly. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I've really like I do my due diligence to like search for queer horror, like, but it's like it's like queer horror, but like it's very complicated in the sense of like there's always something different going on. Like I'm thinking of Swallowed. I'm thinking of I'm thinking of what's that other movie? Climax.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of have you seen Knife and Heart?
I haven't yet. No.
It's a French horror slasher where it's like this lady who runs a porn studio and all her like actors are dying and they're all gay actors, like it's gay porn. So like, but then again, it's gay, but like she's gay, but like it just there's always like that space and that divide where like, oh, I wish they would just like, maneuver it just a little bit. Kind of like with Bones and All, like they were both bisexual, but like
You
it
never really
just
see it, you know,
yeah, it's just
do
kind of
anything.
like it's kind of like doesn't serve its purpose.
Mhm.
So like there is a little bit, but it's like it's not enough, like even with Cuckoo,
Oh, yeah.
it was barely there, it was there for like a few and then it's not there anymore.
Mhm.
And it's like, we're in 2024, and I hope they'll be more outright with the queerness, like or maybe I'm not even looking hard enough. Like maybe someone has a rec of like a super queer horror film that's like, no, you gotta watch this. Like it's sexy, But I mean, besides like, Interview with the Vampire, there's not really like movie wise anything really doing like queer horror the way it should be for like any other horror with the love interest or a final girl, or like I want more non-binary people in Final Girl things, I want to see more people of color, and we're kind of getting that more. We're getting more people of color in horror films, which yes, but now we need everything else. Now we need other identities and things
Mhm.
in there, but I guess we got to write those, like
Yeah, the movie that does come to mind, I think, is really the what's funny is that I feel like queer horror is always a pioneer for that specific subgenre later down the road.
Mhm.
For an example, The Hunger, which came out in the '80s, it's Susan Sarandon and Catherine, I forget her, she's a French actress, but she was in Singing Not Singing in the Rain, Umbrellas of Cherbourg, I believe. And the most famous guy of all, David Bowie's in it. And
Okay.
it's about
Yeah, I haven't seen this.
yeah,
Sorry
and
to
it's
interrupt.
like no, you're good. It's a very aesthetic film. It's about vampirism, and it really set the standard of what vampirism and it looks like in contemporary horror. And it leaked into American Horror Story. It went into Twilight. It went into all these different facets of vampirism. But what was fascinating about that is that it actually was you. There's sex scenes of women having sex. Susan Sarandon's like having sex half the movie as a vampire, and it's not using the vampirism as an allegory for queer subtext. It's the characters are straight to the point they're gay, right? And so I think that's really interesting. And then other films like Near Dark comes around, which is directed by Catherine Bigelow, which was her first film that came out in the '80s, which is fascinating because she never did another horror film again after that. She stuck to just these tough, war films. And then you get Interview with the Vampire in the '90s, which really kind of queerified it without really talking about it. And
Mhm.
that's where we really start to kind of feminize vampirism, and really solidify it from that point. So I think what you're saying is right, is that there needs to be more queer horror in order for the genre to really change and reshape again. Otherwise, it's just going to stay stale, really. Is there any advice on how we could possibly do that, especially in poetry?
Um, I feel like that's a I feel like not be afraid of like what turns us on, or like what desire looks like to queerness because for a long time it was like hiding it away or like numbing it, or like making it less than it is, having to like hide behind language and it's like what if you just say it,
Mm,
uh there's a poet, I think you might know them too, Chen, who's really good at like queer poetry, like just saying the things, and I feel like we can put that into film, just like let the characters can just they're just existing and they happen to be gay, and there's just things going on, and I just feel like the queerness is always like either the problem or like the solution, I guess.
Yeah.
Like them coming
Mhm.
out or them like having to deal with it, like the horror movie. It's not really a horror movie, but like Closet Monster, like the
Yeah.
whole thing is that, like the devil inside of him or like this monster inside of him is because he's gay. It's just like, okay, queen, like we get it.
Yeah.
Like we all have our coming out story. Like I'm tired of the coming out story. Like what if we're just already no no fights against like Heartstopper and those movies that for the newer LGBTQ people, LGBTQ plus people, they need those. But like for us who have, I've been out since I was 13, like I want, already just more queerness, in my horror and also on my screen too. But that's just like I have to like search for it. There are some out there now though, like can I think of anything off the top of my head that I've seen recently that was like a hella queer like show besides Heartstopper or like the one with that guy. What's his name? I don't remember. Anyway, the one with the soldiers. But anyway, the Traveler or something like that. But anyway, the point of me saying that is like I just want it to be more outright and just powerful, like more like, no, this is my strength, not my hindrance, and I just want to see that, and I hope I see that. Like I'm recently like I'm working on my poetry book, but also like I'm also dabbling in like short stories, and it's just like it's like queer short stories about like non-binary people and like queerness and just kind of like what if they're just in these fantastical, like weird situations? Like, what would they do?
Mhm.
And so, like, I recently wrote one about an au pair, a non binary au pair who goes to live with this family and like help take care of the estate. And they call her she, but she's they. So it's like that's one of the problems in the short story. But they fall in love with one of um, the estate owners who's
Mhm.
the oldest son, and then shit goes down. It's about cannibalism. So like, just kind of like this idea of like queerness being a vessel in which I could talk about just weird shit. And then there's another one about like this partners who one of the partners grows slime and they're in their garage, and like they sell it to people because it's like a new drug, but then like what if like they fall into the sludge, like what becomes of them, so it's like an experimental like weird lab horror. So just like shit like that where like they're just existing as queer, but then some weird shit's happening, so kind of like just living in their truth, being sluts, and just like having with these weird grotesque things happen, and it just being like, oh shit, like, here it is.
Definitely. I love it. Well, thank you so much. We're hitting 7:17 now. I'm going to give people who are watching room to express anything they want to down the bottom or have any questions they would like to have. There's a little, I think, question mark bubble. If you want to pop your question in there, we can answer some questions until 7:30 when we're all wrapped up. Let's see. I love that your whole idea and premise about queer being a strength. I think that's really a thing that I think we do need to embrace because what makes the final girl and what makes her strong and powerful is that she's a woman and that she has her brains, right? And that's what gets her through the rest of the film. Laurie Strode gets through Halloween on the premise that not because she's a virgin, but because she's smart, because she understands what she needs to do to survive. And the same with Sidney Prescott in Scream. It's not that they were virgins. That was never the thing to begin with. I mean, I think that was just a conversation that started within fandoms around the film, not within the film. because that's never really addressed until Scream kind of made it a thing. But what is it about queerism that makes it really makes that your strength to survive in a horror film, right? So I guess that's a question you kind of really do have to ask yourself when you're writing towards queer characters, queer poetry, anything queer related, not just horror, but how can you make that thing that everybody else finds to be hindrance a strength for the character and
Yeah,
use it as a tool?
exactly. 'Cause,
Yeah,
there's always like,
people like,
oh,
you know,
and like in people's bios, or or like writing about something. Oh, you always have to make it
have
about
to make
gay
it
stuff.
about
You
gay
always
stuff.
have to
You
make it
always have
about
to make it about
this,
this,
that,
that,
and
and
the
the
other.
other.
Like,
Like
one, that's
one,
my
that's my
experience.
experience
Two,
too.
that's my perspective. And three, like, what if I didn't even like talk about it at all? Like, me just being a queer person, it's always naturally just gonna be that. So it's like,
Yeah. And how's that any different, I feel like, than when people say, "Oh, I'm a US vet and I went to Nam," and that they make that their whole story, how is that any different? They have a specific experience, whereas other people have their own unique experiences as well, and I think that you can't devalue that just because it's not something that resonates with you, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Have you seen that movie
The
Children of Men?
children of men. A long time ago, yeah.
Oh yeah, the one about like how women can't have or
Mhm.
can't get pregnant anymore.
Anymore.
I always
Yeah.
want to be like, what if it's like, what if nobody in the world was straight anymore? What like a horror movie of that nature? Like, what if everybody was not straight? Like what would happen? Because everyone's like, if everybody was gay, then there'd be no more babies. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, like,
And I think, Blood Quantum does it. I don't know if you've seen that, where
no,
everyone
but
in the
I heard of it. Yes.
yes, yeah, only indigenous people survive the apocalypse, allegedly, and so it's because of Blood Quantum, which is the thing that people kind of say is like, what makes us different is our blood quantum, but really it's almost saying like we are different because we're a different species, which is funny. And now this horror film comes around and turns it on its head. I personally don't think it utilizes it effectively enough, but I mean, it's a start, right? It's a start to something bigger and better.
Yeah, more
Yeah,
indigenous
more indigenous
horror.
horror, like
I
I
watched.
watched what was it?
They didn't do a great
Great job,
job, but
but
Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, like, I thought it was an interesting concept, and I like that some of the leads were indigenous, but it's like, they convoluted it with everything else, but like they were trying to do something, but
Mhm.
they never really get there. And that's another thing too. Like, if you're gonna do it, just do it and just do it. Like, that's what I feel about queerness. Like, if you're gonna write the story, just write it and do it. Like, stand in the queerness, stand in the indigeneity. Like, let them exist as they are.
Mhm.
But
You know, I think what a lot of people, um, don't understand is if you can tie it and thread it into the story and braid it in so that you can pulling it out makes the story almost non-existent. It gives editors, it gives producers, it gives publishers, it gives the studio heads, it gives all these people who will come and say, "Hey, can you take that out because I think that's not relevant to the story?" Well, no, because it's actually literally woven into it. It's the thing that makes it what it is. You cannot take it out. And that's what makes, I think, a movie like Get Out work because it's all about being black,
so
right?
intricate. That's
Because
so
yeah, so intricately
like and like you use words that
language
you use
is
woven
woven
into
into
what this
what this
story
story
is about.
about.
You can't make it any other
The
way.
other
Like,
way, like
that's just
that's
how
just
it
how
is.
it is.
Like,
Yeah,
they
they
stick
stick, they
like
stick,
burnt
like
up
just
stuff to
stuck
the
to the
guns.
guns. Hmm.
So it's like that's why I like, yeah, see, that's a great example.
Hmm.
I mean, Swallowed was a pretty queer ass movie too, but like it always had that romantic like tinge. The only reason they were in that situation is because of the in the closet guy, and doing something romantic for his friend, and them never consummating because he dies, spoiler alert. Like, it's
Yeah.
always like something like that. Like, it's getting there, and then like they always do something like that just like ruins it. Like, of course you gotta die because bury your gays, and like, since there's two gays, we still have one more for to live, like, see, we threw you a bone. Like, thanks.
Oh, funny. Does anybody have questions yet? Are they percolating?
Percolate.
What is that? What song is that from? Percolating.
It's from a Mary J. Blige song, I
Okay,
believe.
that was what it was. Oh, the
And
dance
yeah.
was my jam for a while and I forgot about it
Well, there you go. Now you can listen
do it tonight. While I'm watching The Conjuring.
Oh gosh, yeah. I remember when I watched that. My mom, I remember when it first came
First,
out,
my mom
took me
took
to go watch it. She's the
she's
one.
the one.
She hates scary movies, but she was always a trooper to take me. Like my grandpa too, while he when he was alive. Like if nobody wanted to go watch a horror movie with me, he would go. And
Mhm.
then my mom too. Like I remember when The Conjuring came out, she was like, "Let's go watch it." I'm like, "Mom, you don't like scary movies. Why do you want to go watch it?" She's like, "What if I pay?" I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Like, but the whole time we're watching the movie, not even kidding you, like she has her face covered the whole time. I'm like, Mom, you paid for this movie. She's like, exactly, so I can do what I want. I was like, okay, like you're not even seeing what's going on the screen.
I think when
uh,
I I think when I saw it, it was packed theater. I know it was a Friday or Thursday night, and it was packed with nothing but Hispanic people. And that's
oh,
funny, like, Hispanic people are just, like, drawn to the possession film, and I remember,
okay.
having friends yeah, going over to a friend's house and they're Hispanic, and they'd always be watching possession films, and I never got why at the time, but now I do. It's like, okay, I get it, especially when it comes to the lores that they've been growing up being told. They're so fascinated by it, and it just
Yep.
makes you wonder, like
with La Llorona and the Cucuy and the Chupacabra and little demons under your bed if you don't go to bed on time. I'm just like, thanks.
like, I'll live with them. I'll
Yeah,
embrace it.
yeah, that's fine. I'll make them my besties.
We got a question here. Where can we read your short stories?
I don't have too many out. I have like a couple, but the one that just came out about the non-binary au pair came out in the Icarus Writing Collective.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, that just came out.
I have another one called um not what was it? It was based off of The Witch with Black Phillip.
Mhm.
When did that come out at? I don't remember, but that's also out. I wrote a short story. It's actually a nonfiction piece about when I was younger. I saw a goat get slaughtered, but like it was so I told the story through the eyes of the goat, and then like I referenced like the witch, like oh, what if I was this powerful goat and wanted to live life deliciously? Like why wouldn't they keep me alive? Instead of like killing me for BDM, So like it was an interesting concept. But yeah, so right now the Icarus Writing Collective, I mostly write poetry. Um the Maine review, Acentos review, where else? Anomaly, um yeah, it's a bunch of places and some of the poems are like in
Indie
defunct
funk
journals
journals
that
that
like
like
died
died
during
during COVID. So like,
or
or
during the
the
first
first
wave of
wave
the
of the
pandemic because I
pandemic.
do
Because I do
believe we're still in a
a
pandemic.
pandemic.
It's
It's
just,
just people
people don't
don't.
care as much. But like, I still mask when I go to like huge places. So,
Mm.
but anyway, yeah, yeah, I hope to answer the question. I'm trying to write more short stories, especially because like I dream a lot and like I have a notepad of like short story ideas, and I've been working on the queer short stories about like just putting queer people or non-binary people and in weird ass situations and just seeing what they do.
Awesome. Well, if anybody else has no questions, I think that is it. Um, well, I thank you again for coming on as our last guest. This was so freaking amazing. Thank you so much. Thank
You
you
so much
so
for
much for
creating
creating this
space
space,
not only
not
for
only
the
for the Nate.
Kids Film Club, but also just for horror enthusiasts, for people of different backgrounds, and for creating space for people. And I appreciate that from you too.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a great rest of their evening and have a You great. Have a great Halloween. Shoot.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Go to a haunted house.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alrighty. Thank you, everyone.